Be inspired by the best sales professionals, sales leaders, and coaches in the world of B2B sales. From IT services, medical devices, through to coaching and consulting companies, these principles will help you accelerate your sales performance and growth. Using models from the best-selling book Inspire, Influence, Sell, and award-winning programs from Focus for Growth, you'll have the inside track on the psychology, skills, and systems used by the world's best sales teams. We'll hear from some of the best sales leaders from some of the fastest growing businesses in the world. They don't achieve record-breaking growth by chance. They have a proven sales and leadership approach and a laser focus on growth. You can hear exactly how they do it, one conversation at a time. This is the Inspire Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Justin Leigh. Welcome to this episode of the Inspire Sales Podcast. Today, I am recording a slightly different episode. I've invited my brother, Paul Leigh, onto the episode. Paul is a content creator on social media, and he runs his own business working as a sales consultant in the transport and bus industry. And Paul is someone that's really interesting. He's got a really interesting take on sales, very much experience-led, very relationship-based. And some of his examples are really good opportunities for us all to stop and think, actually, how does this relate to our business? How can we start to do things slightly differently in our approach to sales? I hope you enjoy this conversation with me and Paul today, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Enjoy the episode. Let's dive in. So welcome to the Inspire Sales Podcast. This morning, I'm delighted and privileged to say that I'm joined by someone I know incredibly well. It's my brother, Paul Leigh. Paul, welcome to the Inspire Sales Podcast.
How you doing, Justin? You all right?
I'm very well, thanks. Yeah, very well. Thank you. Thanks for agreeing to come on. I'm really intrigued and excited about our conversation today because it's something completely different.
Yeah.
For those people, I mean, most people will know you, but they perhaps won't know the full backstory. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Paul, but just a quick whistle stop. You know, Paul's my brother. Obviously, I've known him all my life, all his life, because I'm slightly older, right?
Yes, right.
At least. And we're going to talk about two things today, Paul. We'll talk about your role running a business and a business that's pretty much a sales-driven business,
Correct.
but then also your role as part of the Famileigh as social media influencers, and I'm really intrigued by the connection between those two things. So could you just give us a quick overview of what you do today, and then we'll dig in to the story.
Absolutely, be a pleasure. Well, firstly, thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure. I've seen your podcast and thinking, wow, I'd love to go on there one day. That would be so cool. So thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. Yeah. So it will actually be a year next week that I've started my own business called Ignite Vehicle Services, and basically I've been working in the bus industry for nearly 14 years, and I absolutely love it. Fantastic people. So I had the opportunity going on, which I'll come to in a minute, regarding why I did it and allowed me to do what I'm doing today. I was very fortunate. A year ago, I started my own company called Ignite Vehicle Services, which basically I class myself as a sales consultant. So I've partnered up with key manufacturers within the transport industry, specifically bus, and I represent those companies as a sales consultant. So basically that's my business per se. And then also on top of that, I also do work with my family on a social media platform. We call ourselves the Famileigh, which actually on Sunday, so yesterday, it was 4 years anniversary.
Wow. Was it 4 years yesterday?
Yeah, 4 years yesterday. So we
congratulations.
Thank you very much. So we put a video out to everybody to thank them for, we got, I think, 4 years and over 4 million followers across our platform. So we wouldn't be doing what we're doing, or having the golden opportunities that we've had over the last 4 years without people following us and watching our videos. So we're
4 million, Paul. Just
across the platform.
4 million across the different platforms.
Yeah, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. So yeah, it's been an absolute whirlwind. I mean, I always also hear people say every 5 years your life changes.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say, if you'd have told me even 4.5 years ago you will be where you are today, I would have never believed you in a million years. I'd have gone, yeah. And it just proves what life can bring and what life can turn out if you take those opportunities and grab it with two hands and just go for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's incredible, really incredible
Yeah.
journey.
So two things I want to delve into today, Paul. Before we do that, a lot of people will be thinking, because they'll have heard of you, they'll certainly have heard of the Famileigh. I very often get stopped by clients and they'll say, "There's a guy on social media who looks a little bit like you. He does these, these dances and activities with his children." I'm like, "Yeah, it's my brother." And and they're like, "God, how did all that happen?" So.
Yeah.
And it's really easy for people to think, "Oh, it's all right for you, Paulie, right? You become a social media influencer, you work for yourself, you're a sales consultant, but it's not. It hasn't always been like that. Tell us how did you get here? How did it happen?"
Yeah, so quite interesting. So what I would say is, you say social media influencer. We always class ourselves as social media content creators,
Right. Yeah.
because I think an influencer is somebody that will probably, I don't know, will try and influence your mindset, where we don't class it as that. We class ourselves as a family. We do really, really fun. We'd like to make you think that every single video you watch, if it doesn't put a smile on your face, we don't think we've done a good enough job.
Right.
So
Okay.
we class ourselves as content creators. So that's the first thing. How we got there. So I mean, talk about fate. So obviously there was really bad situations happening. COVID, the world stopped. Everybody, it was a horrific time for the world, really. And I was working from home. I was lucky enough to not be furloughed, so I carried on working. Harrison at the time was doing a sandwich course, and he was also working from home, and we're all at home. And then, but the backstory of that is that what I say is that Harrison has been a YouTuber since the age of 11.
Mm.
So he did YouTube, as you remember, and he always used to get me involved in those videos. So if you look back on YouTube and you search up to him, you will see that me, back in the day, I was involved in his YouTube channels. So when I was working in the office, he said, "Hey, Dad, there's this app called TikTok." I went, "Right." He said, "There's this dance trend called blinding lights." So I said, "Yeah." He said, "Have a look." So he showed me. I went, "All right." Yeah. He said, "Do you want to do it?" I went, "Yeah." So there it was, lunchtime, practicing the dance, doing all that. And then we did it. And then he posted it. He came downstairs, chucked the phone on the settee, and it was going ding, 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 ding. So what's that? He went, "It's notifications." I went, "You're joking." I said, "Yeah." So within, I think, 12 hours, we had over 1 million views.
What, on the first video?
First video, the very, very first video.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah. And I was like, "Wow, what does that mean then?" He went, "We've got to do another one." I went, "Right, okay." So then we did another one, did another dance, and then that hit exactly the same views. So, and that was literally, talk about fate. That's how it all started. So we continued, and we've done, as I say, 4 years on Sunday, done over 700 videos. It's just been a whirlwind, an absolute whirlwind. So very, very lucky, extremely lucky. So, but Harrison's extremely, very, very good at, he does all the editing, does all the music and everything. He's very talented in that aspect. I literally, as I say to everyone, I just turn up, Justin, as you know. I get told what to do. Right, we're doing this, 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 this. Okay, right. And the other thing that I would say is that I'm extremely grateful for is that, people say to me, "Oh, you spend time with kids." Yeah, I'm extremely proud that I'm very lucky that I have a 22-year-old and a 24-year-old, soon to be 23 and 25, and a daughter that I get the chance to spend every other weekend, because we film every other weekend, as you know.
Yeah.
And I get chance to spend a whole weekend with them, and we do genuinely have such a laugh and have a really good time. And that is why we always said, as soon as we don't enjoy it, that will be the time we go, right, okay, what are we doing? But yeah, may long it continue for the next
Yeah.
decade or 2 decades. It's a lovely
Yeah.
legacy to have, I think. But yeah, so that's how it started, really, and it's just incredible.
And
Absolutely.
the thing is, you talked about the fun you have. That really comes across. If anybody's been in a cave and hasn't seen any
Yeah,
of the content of the Famileigh, and they'll know our surname is Leigh.
yeah,
So it's the Famileigh, Famileigh, as in
PH.
family. But I'm sure most people will have followed the trend. That's really good. It's interesting you said about the quality time with the kids. I heard on a podcast before Christmas that, and when I heard the stat, I couldn't believe it. It said that by the time your children are 13,
Yeah.
for most people, you've already spent 80% of the time you'll spend with them throughout their lives.
Mm,
And as I kind
that's
of know
interesting.
why, and then you start to think about it. And for most people that don't get the quality time you get every weekend because you're together working together on content,
Yeah.
actually you can see how that's true, because once we become teenagers and beyond, you become more independent, and people go to university or they get jobs, and before you know it, the amount of time you spend with your parents really starts to reduce. So you have to make the most, you should make the most of it anyway, but actually for you've really got that opportunity to make the most of the time with each other. And that's the kind of content creation part of what you're doing, Paul. Talks about through the sales. You said 14 years in the automotive and bus industry, and then the last year working for yourself. For a lot of people who are in sales, and I can appreciate this from my own career, and a lot of people listening will think the same. The kind of dream is, how do I create a business I can work for myself in and do sales? I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. So talk us through how you've managed to get to that position as well.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. I think, over the years that, you and I speak about work, not necessarily family, but, I think more the older I get, I think, the more I think about it's all about mindset. I know you're really big on that, and I think that cannot be undervalued. And it's something that I probably really didn't, I did know, but I really didn't take on board how important a mindset is. So the family, as I said, is going extremely well from strength to strength. But what the family did for me allowed me to actually have a little bit of freedom to think, actually, I can give this a go. And if it all goes wrong, then I've got something to fall back on. And I suppose in my head, because, everyone's got bills, mortgages, everything else, I needed that sort of, I want to call it the comfort blanket or the security blanket.
Yeah.
And that's what's allowed me to do. So it allowed me at the time to think, actually, what do I need in life? I need flexibility at this moment in time. So what I was finding, I was using a lot of my holiday at the time to do videoing, recording, and not having a lot of my own time. So I thought, how am I going to get a happy balance without either going full time with the family or doing something myself, as well as doing that as a side hustle, I suppose, better word to use. So that allowed me to think, actually, the best thing to do would be to start my own business. And knowing where I would come beforehand, I used to work for a company called Alexander Dennis selling buses. And I just thought, well, it gave me an opening to say, and before that, I was working for Outro, and I still am now. So I was in the supply mode.
Yeah.
So my role really was to say, actually, I can partner up with some really good companies, UK companies, and some European companies, and say, right, how would you like to have an account manager, a sales account manager representing your company in the UK transport market, and partnering you with the long term? So doing a sales role. So that's how it allowed me to do that. And I had conversations with people that, not were struggling, but were wanting to hire a salesperson. So I was thinking, well, instead of a cost of, X amount per year, how about having me as a consultant, and negotiating a contract that way? So, and that worked worked really well for me at the moment. So which is great. So that's how the transition occurred.
So, and they're all non-conflicting agreements with different companies that are supplying the market,
Correct.
have different technologies or products or service offerings, and
Exactly.
you're able to talk to a single customer where all of your product offerings are relevant.
Yeah, exactly that. So, for example, flooring, destinations, fire suppression, induction loop, EV infrastructure, fire protection, predictive maintenance. So it gives me a real good, I suppose, plethora or portfolio of products where, okay, if somebody doesn't want to talk to me about destinations, want to talk about flooring or fire suppression. So it's quite a nice, I believe I've got a nice portfolio of products where I should be able to have a conversation with somebody and find a common interest or something that might be of interest to them, and predictive maintenance as well. So yeah, it's quite an interesting, and it's something new as well for me. I mean, it's, I've had to learn quite a lot about different products that I'm now representing. So for your own, not mental health, but it's quite nice and invigorating to actually get your teeth into something new as well. So that's like a fresh sort of start, so to speak.
Yeah, re-energizes you, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because, sometimes I've always thought that whenever, in the industry that I'm in, when somebody doesn't specify your product, it's very difficult to then to grow um, partnership with that person or a relationship with that person because they're not interested. So to have maybe 4 or 5 different products that somewhere you can try and find something that you have a common ground with,
Yeah.
support and help them, then you get more of a contact and you get more of an opportunity to network within the
Yeah.
industry.
And you become more relevant to the customer, right? Because you're offering them more value through the different products that you bring. But if
Exactly.
you go back a step, Paul,
Yeah.
all of that is only possible because of the strength and depth of the relationships that you've got with people in the industry. And so I'm thinking here through that, you think about the lens of our listener, right? So someone listening to this says, oh yeah, well, that's all right for you, but because that's what happens, right? We have this internal narrative. You said it yourself, the whole mindset about working for yourself. We have this, and I used to say it to myself for years. I've
Mm.
got friends, family who all work for themselves. And I used to say, yeah, it's all right for you because X, Y, and Z, but I'm in sales. How do you work for yourself in sales? And it took me a while to figure it out. And it is all about the way that you interpret opportunities and create opportunities for yourself. But I love the way that you've done it because you've got really strong relationships and you've nurtured those relationships, invested in those customers and companies, and you created high relevance, always been thinking about value for the customer. How do you make sure that there's real strength in what you're doing and relevance in what you're doing? Tell us a bit about that. Tell us about your customers, your relationships, how you go about that.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually,
Mm.
because I was only talking about this the other day to someone, but I'd probably say, so some of my customers, I actually don't call them customers. Some of them actually are classed as friends.
Yeah.
So I know them on a personal level as well as a work level. But yeah, there are customers. But what I've always done, and it's something that I've always grasped with 2 hands. I love networking. So, people say, "Oh, network." I love networking. I love going to places and meeting people, new people, and talking to people, firstly. But I would say more importantly, and you'll probably know this as well, a sales job is not 9 till 5, right?
Mm.
So if you're wanting to go in sales and you want to work 9 till 5, then I would say good luck if you can find a career like that. Because as far as I'm concerned, I've always done over and above, always been out in evenings, weekends, and and spend what I would class as my own time. It's still work time, but my own time. I'm still working for a bit or working for myself and representing myself in a professional manner. But I'll always put myself out no matter what. If I'm working 18 hours, then I'll do that. And I say working, it's going out and socializing, and so I wouldn't call it working. But you have to put yourself out.
Mm.
Now, some people don't, say, well, that's my family time. I've done my work and I've done that for the day. That's absolutely fine. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. But where the position I'm in, I've always gone over and above and gone, if I'm going out with a customer going out, then that's absolutely, I class that as that's brilliant. It doesn't bother me when that is, what time that is. If I'm with a customer, that's important to me. And that's how I've grown. I believe that's how I've grown my network.
So you go beyond the transactional business
Yeah.
relationship and you're going deeper to downtime. And this is important. People haven't grasped this and they're in sales. Hopefully most people have, but there's that separation that we all have between kind of work mode
Yeah.
and life mode.
Correct.
And it's very difficult to get beyond work mode with people if you just see them during office hours or at their office or at a trade event or at your office or in a business meeting during the day.
Correct.
Actually getting the separation between what goes on during the day for people in work mode and what goes on in life mode, talking about their families, talking about their personal interests, their passions, the things they absolutely love to do. It gets you below the surface, and
Yeah.
having time to create that is really important for you found it important for your relationships.
Absolutely, and I think just going one step further as well is
Mm.
that so for instance, if you're having a work related meeting and it's during the day and you have, obviously I still have those and they're very professional,
Yeah.
but I also think that sometimes like when you get a reaction from somebody or you think, oh, what's going on, you get a deeper understanding as well is what they're going through as well.
Yeah.
So asking questions around, what's going on in their business, what's going on in their responsibilities, what's happening, and you realize actually, one of the things I was going to come on to later is that in sales, you have to realize that I'd probably say 99.999% of the time is never anything personal to you.
Yeah.
And I said that's something that I've actually learned over the obviously the last decade or so, is that don't take things personally, because when you're thinking it is you, it's actually not.
Mm.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes that customer or that person's going through
Mm.
that's not even affecting you, but you believe that it is, and their reply or their response or whatever their decision is. So yeah, I think that it just gives you a little bit more deeper understanding of what's happening in their, and putting yourself in their shoes rather than just thinking about you all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're right. 'Cause whether it's rejection or it's
Yeah,
I don't know. Sometimes we all get those messages from customers that might seem a bit frosty
yeah,
or almost aggressive, and then you can
yeah,
take. It's really easy to take that personally, isn't it?
absolutely,
Mm.
100%. That's something that it's taken me years, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
Seriously, it's taken me
Yeah.
years to actually, and some, don't get me wrong, sometimes I'm like, oh, God, really? It's just, and you're trying to grapple with it and you're thinking, right, what have I done wrong? And then you start thinking about, should I have positioned it this way? Should I have written it that way? But then, you realize when you get deeper into that relationship, you actually realize actually it's nothing to do with me. It was more to do with what's going on in their business and
Yeah.
the stresses and the strains they're under to achieve X for the year and everything else. So yeah,
Mm.
it's quite, yeah, that's how I've always been doing it, and I genuinely I love it. I really do. I mean, I wish I'd have done it when I was a lot younger, really, if I'm honest.
Mm.
But
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think I have the same thoughts about, should I have started sooner? But I also think I don't know if I'd have been able to do it because I needed the life experience, the career
yeah,
experience,
true.
the nose, the
Yeah, true.
hardening my kind of shell,
Yeah,
hardening my resilience to all that rejection that happens in sales. It's one of the things I mean, I know I've talked to you about this and we talk about it, but sales really is one of those, such a tough role for most people, because
mm,
regardless of how successful you are at it, there aren't many people in sales that will hear more yeses than nos. You hear more nos than yeses, and that's such, because and it takes so long to get used to that and to build up resilience towards it,
yeah,
that you start to see. I always think about, the no. If I
yeah,
read it years ago, the no is next opportunity. Don't take it personally.
yeah,
Next opportunity. It's
yeah,
just no problem. Never have any
yeah,
hard feelings. Yeah, no worries at all. We're always here when you want us. Please feel free
yeah.
to come back in the future. Next.
Well,
Next.
it's quite interesting because I'm looking through my notes quickly because I thought I'd made a note of it. But when I attended your sales training course
Mm.
last month, which by the way, if anyone has been offered to go on or can go on it, I would highly recommend it, because I'm a great believer as well that if you take one or two items from the course, then you've learned something. I'm always about learning, learn. But you gave a really interesting fact, and I thought, bloody hell, that's pretty bang on
Mm.
of how many no's you get to yeses.
Yeah.
And it was quite high, and I thought,
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably right actually.
Yeah.
But you don't realize it's that. Was it 75% of no's? And
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, normally a good conversion rate for most people is 25 to 35%.
yeah, yeah,
That's a good conversion rate. So what that
yeah,
means is you're getting
yeah,
one yes to every 3 or 4 no's.
yeah,
And so you have, it takes a certain kind of positive attitude to accept that on a day-to-day basis and keep going without any loss of enthusiasm or
yeah, I agree.
positivity. It really does.
Yeah, I totally
And,
agree with you.
and if you think about, I always think, that's 1 in 3 or 4. Well, if you think let's say 1 in 4, right? What happens if you get, so 3 out of 4 is a no? What happens if you get two lots of three in a row? You get 6 no's in a row before you get a couple of yeses. And it
Yeah,
can really start to
yeah,
play on your mind and eat away at your motivation. We really have to manage ourselves in sales. It's so important.
100%. And I think I've had a
Mm.
couple of them on the go, on the bounce,
Yeah.
which which is going to happen. So
Yeah.
it's actually, to be honest with you, when I heard that, I found that quite a bit of a relief. I was like, oh, that's good then. So I
Yeah.
didn't feel so like it was abnormal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's I thought that was quite a nice relief, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
To
So
hear those statistics.
it does give you reassurance that it's not unusual.
Yeah,
And actually, we're always going through a process for sales. I'm going through a process, building relationships, trying to understand what customers need, trying to present a solution that's most relevant, then asking for, some form of commitment. And that's the point at which we get a yes or a no. And we think
absolutely.
about how we handle that.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you. So yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, I think it's about how you then manage your mindset because, I think you just have to be. I think I like the no, next opportunity. That's bang on, and I think that's how over the year, and that takes time. Let's be
Yeah.
honest, that does take time to be able to get that and go right, okay. And that's all around about how you plan yourself, how you then look at your opportunities and
Yeah.
your network, and you think right, okay, that's a no there. So who's next? Who's your
Yeah.
next target or your next person you need to deal with? But yeah,
Yeah.
it's very very. But then on the flip coin of that, when they say yes, it's euphoria.
Yeah.
Nothing quite like when someone says yeah, just let you know I'm gonna use you in the next order, and I just that feeling, that buzz,
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
can't beat that sensation. I
Mm.
absolutely love that. I
Yeah.
really
Me too.
that's why I think that sort of that drives me, if I'm honest, is that
Yeah.
yeah, great, and you think God, that's fantastic. You feel like you've done a job well done.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. People recognize the value and they want to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And we all have, I have that. I've been a bit like you. I'll get those no's in a row.
yeah,
And actually, in the last week, I've had two yeses in a row, and I'm like,
yeah.
blimey, that doesn't happen very often.
Ah,
And that euphoria carries you away. It carries you on
yeah,
to the next conversations. It's really good when you're able
yeah,
to get that connection with a customer that they think it's right, you think it's right, and all of a sudden, you're away on a program
yeah,
or a
yeah.
project or a contract. It's brilliant. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Also,
So
I think it also just it gives you the confidence,
yeah,
and then B, it just reinforces what you are doing or what you have done is right because
yeah,
somebody recognized that and gone, actually, yeah, okay. So
mm,
I think, mentally you think, okay, I am doing the right thing. I just,
yeah,
that person, okay, it wasn't right. Or did I need to slightly change my style? Or did I need to ask more questions? And, all those sorts of things you start
mm,
going in your head. But yeah, it gives you a good concrete base, I suppose, a platform to say, right, yeah, you're doing the right thing. You now need to just try and move
yeah,
it move it around, I suppose, with different
yeah.
people.
Adjust and course
Everyone is
correct
different.
as you go forward. Yeah,
Everyone is different. And the other thing I learned as well, which I was going to speak to you about, is that one of the things that I've accepted, and it's taken me a long time, by the way, and you're right, maybe it is, probably couldn't have done it 20 years ago, and I think you're absolutely bang on. But it's taken me a long, long time to accept that not everyone's going to like you. And
yeah,
that's sometimes as a person, as an individual, that's really hard to accept because
mm,
you just want everyone to like you. But the reality is not everyone's going to like you. And that's
no,
fact, part of life. So, yeah, I think I've accepted that more in the since I've been doing social media, if I'm honest. But than anything else. But yeah, it's just one of those things in life. You just can't change people's perception
yeah,
or
yeah.
thought.
I'm sure at some point I'll find someone that doesn't like me, but I don't. Until now, it's been all right. No, you're right. Sometimes there's just no telling. And no matter what you do, we talk
Yeah,
about rapport principles and being interested in the other person, finding common ground. Sometimes there's just a disconnect,
yeah,
and you can't. There's the saying, isn't there? You can't please all of the people all the time.
yeah,
You just can't. It's never going to happen. So
true.
actually recognizing that, almost drawing a line under it, because what I've noticed in the past with me and people I've worked with, sales teams I've led, is that sometimes if you don't accept that disconnect, you don't accept actually this relationship isn't going to work, you find yourself in a position where you are feeling subservient. You're having to do all the hard work. That person's kind of almost being dismissive of you, and you can find yourself in a really weak position when it comes to creating value. Everything gets diluted, and actually you'd be better off drawing a line under that and saying, right, actually I'm going to stop making an effort here and start making an effort where it really counts with people that do appreciate me, that I've got a connection with.
Yeah,
It is
it's
relevant.
true.
So important to know that. And I think earlier in your career it's more difficult
Yeah.
because you feel like you want more business.
Yeah.
But as
Agreed.
you get more mature and you recognize through your experience that you can
Yeah.
say no to a customer, actually it's quite rewarding saying, no, I don't think this is a fit. I've had that conversation a number of times since I've worked for myself where I've said, I'm not sure there's compatibility here. I always think about that in those initial conversations, compatibility.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It means, is this a customer I want to work with? Is this a customer that I think I can add value to? And will the relationship work? And will it be fun? And if for me, if there's a no to any of those kind of 3, 4 questions,
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
And I think there's real power in that.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think when you're working for yourself, you got the ability to do that,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah. Do I wish if I think about my career, I wish I'd gone back earlier in my career and perhaps been a bit bolder in some of those decisions where I chased opportunities that weren't right. And I spent an enormous amount of time chasing opportunities that were never going to go anywhere, weren't the
Yeah.
right people. And
Yeah.
actually, if I'd drawn a line under it sooner and made a conscious decision myself, and as I think about it, quite early in those conversations, I recognized it wasn't going to be right, but continued to pursue it. I should have gone, do you know what? My time's worth more than this. And
Yeah.
perhaps that's a good bit of advice for people earlier in their careers. Trust that intuition, start to take control of some of those relationships. Don't let the customer be the one that says no if your instinct tells you it's not right.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Mm.
If you could just have a time machine.
Well, yeah, that's the whole idea of these is to talk. It's almost like talking to our younger selves, isn't it? There will
Yeah.
be people earlier in their careers who go, actually, how can I adopt some of that advice? How can I start to think
True.
differently about what I'm doing today so
Yeah.
that it serves them? It absolutely will ramp up your success later on in your career and more quickly if you can
Definitely.
get some of that decision making in early.
Yeah, agreed.
Mm.
Yeah,
So, Paul, tell us a bit about how your two kind of businesses and your roles, how do they kind of integrate? How do you harmonize them? How do you leverage one and the other?
Yeah, so we're quite, I suppose, because we've been doing the family for 4 years, as I said, I think
Yeah,
because we're in such a routine now where we film every other weekend, so
yeah,
that's really quite ingrained in our life basically.
yeah,
So then basically on a working Monday to a Friday, then that's when I do Ignite Vehicles, and I work within the transport industry. So it goes quite hand in hand. I mean, the only time I really do anything during the week for the family is if there's a I don't know if there's a filming schedule or there's something we've been invited to, then that may come into the week. But yeah, so it just gives me the flexibility to actually say, okay, Monday to Friday is my normal working week, and then
yeah,
weekends is family. So yeah, I say work. I don't class the family as working. I generally don't. It's more opportunity to spend the time with the family. So, but it's how you plan it, because it has to be. Harrison obviously manages it, runs it, schedules it, plans it, does all the treatment. So he basically runs it all. It's just around about getting our calendars together and saying, right, okay, so who's who, we know what we're doing, right, we're starting at this time, we're going to try and
yeah,
finish at this time. So it is running a business, definitely, but it's
yeah.
how we plan it, make sure we're all scheduled in together. So it's
But do you find that it's been beneficial to your core kind of sales consultancy role? Is that how the family and what that has enabled you to do and how that impacts positively? I'm assuming your sales role. Do you see that, or is that just a kind of
that's a really
consequence?
that's a really, really good question. That's a really good question. I probably need to ask some people about that, because I would say no, but that's a really good question. Obviously, when I go to events, I do get a couple of people come up to me and say, "Oh, wow, you're from the family," or "You're the devil. What are you doing here?" I was like, "Oh, I've been in the industry for the last 14." Oh, wow, I didn't know that. So, um, I'd probably say it's more to do with that. I don't know. I don't know whether I've influenced anything or anything's been, I've had an opportunity because I've been doing what I'm doing. Probably not, I wouldn't say, because it's more, I don't know, people are just like, sort of, oh, wow, I didn't know it was you. So, um, who knows? I'd like to think anyone that's, knows me now and said, I'd like to deal with Paul because he's from the family. Fantastic. I'll probably say not. I'll probably say not. That don't happen. But yeah.
But you're very open to it if someone
Yeah,
wants
I'm
to.
very open to it, 100%, 100% open to it. But no, there's been, I mean, I've had one operator actually that asked me, I was blown away actually, asked me to host one of their management days last year, yeah, because they said, look, you're a social media guy and we'd love to have someone that's recognised and host our day. Unfortunately, I was very disappointed I couldn't do it. But they said, look, what about next year, this year? And I said, yeah, if you give me the date, I'd be honoured. So yeah, so that's the only, I suppose that's the only time. And I've had another operator actually ask if we would do a video for them. So it's trying to, I suppose, balance it all up between what I do and try and keep them separate. But at the end of the day, I'm still running my own business. I'm still, still running my own business. So it gives me the flexibility to do what I want.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's quite interesting. I think the other thing is though, Justin, is we're growing. So I think, answer your question, that might change in a year, 2 years time.
Yeah.
Who knows? Do you know what I mean? Where we'll be, what we're doing, because the other thing that I've found about life is that more so now is that something, tomorrow, something will happen tomorrow. Could get an email, something could happen. They want you, and it's very, very fast paced. And we're very much like we'll grab it with two hands. So,
Yeah.
you don't know what happens in a month's time, 6 months' time. So, I've always believed that, life is a journey. And that's a massive cliche. Life's not a destination, it is a journey. And wherever
Yeah.
that takes you, you've either got to take the opportunities when they come, or you don't. So, but we always take them. So, and I find that really exciting. It's sometimes nerve-wracking, but at the end of the day, when you look back, it's very, very enjoyable. So, who knows? Who knows? We could be talking in a year's time. You just don't know where any of us will be, really.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true.
So, I don't know.
The attitude towards it's really important, isn't it? Whatever happens, you got to see the opportunity and go at it with everything you've got and grab it with both hands. Yeah, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
But I also think, on a side note to that, sales job you've got to have a little bit of confidence. So
yeah,
so I think go walking into a room, for example, and not knowing anybody, and actually just saying hello to somebody, starting having a conversation, and then walk in the room. You cannot be shy. You've got
no,
to have a little bit of confidence at least. So I would say that's helped me a lot in the family because obviously, as we're growing up, we're all, we're all quite confident boys and young men. So I think that's rubbed off on my kids. I know it's rubbed off on your kids. So I just think that giving that confidence and saying, you know what, just give it a go. What's going to happen? And don't worry too much about what people say. If you're happy with it, go with it. Because I think a lot of the time you worry too much, or I used to worry about too much what people thought. People don't
yeah,
care about you. They've got too much other stuff going on in their own life. So that's another thing that you learn when you get older. When you're younger, you're more paranoid about it. Oh, so that's I've learned a lot about that. Just if you love it, do it. Do what
yeah,
you want to do, and I'm sure if other people will love it, then they'll come along for the ride as well. So yeah, I think sales has definitely helped me in that role. Definitely. If I was a
yeah.
bit shy and a little bit timid, then I don't think I could do what I'm doing, if I'm honest.
No, no, you're right. And that confidence does take time to develop. You have to nurture it. Sometimes it is about the things, the perspective shifts that you have. It's a really important one. People don't care about what I'm doing. They're more
They
worried
don't.
about their own lives. So
Correct.
just crack on anyway. Do what you want to do. Find
Absolutely.
something you love to do. Be really passionate because that.
Yeah.
And we talk about this a lot in the sales workshops. Actually, that passion is infectious.
Yeah.
So if if you're a customer dealing with two different suppliers and one person walks through the door and they're absolutely passionate about what they do, they love it, they're lit up talking about it, you can sense the positivity and the energy, and then someone else comes through the door and they're just like, we can absolutely help you, yeah, but they're just going through the motions. The difference in the customer experience, okay, sometimes it might not be the only thing they're judging, but it's going to be a huge sway on their decision making. And so the more you work,
100%.
the better for you and for your customers and the
Yeah.
success of your business.
And
But,
one of the other things so I was going to say to you was that that happens, and it's just really well. I only spotted this just recently, actually. But one of the things that Harrison does every time we record, and
yeah,
it's just a patter, but I think he does it subconsciously, right? He always says, "Guys, let's give it 100%. Let's give it 100%. Are we ready? Let's give it 100%." And that to me, it's like that's our mindset.
yeah,
Anything
that's
we'll
good.
do, we'll give it 100%. And exactly what you just said, we won't just go and go, "Yeah, we're in there, we're in the
Yeah.
zone, right, let's do this." And then exactly like, if I go to a meeting, it's an important meeting, I'm like, I'm already thinking about them. I've already dreamt about the meeting. I'm thinking about the meeting. Right, okay, this is right, okay. And I'm already going through, I've already had that meeting, maybe 10, 15, 20 times, go in and then I'll have the meeting. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, they're the sorts of things that people put, I don't know if people really talk about, but I do automatically, and I've done for years and years and years.
Yeah.
When it's something really important, I'll always. They talk about football, don't they? Or they talk about team sports people.
Mental rehearsal. Yeah.
Yeah, mental rehearsal.
Mm.
Yeah, so I do that, and that's
Yeah.
not from that. I just did it automatically as you're growing up and going through a different challenge. You'd automatically think maybe it's from a worry perspective, but then over time it changed from a worry to actually let me go through that meeting in my head and see
Yeah.
how that works out. By the
Yeah.
way, it very rarely works out that way. However, you are planned. You are planned in your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're there, thereabouts. But
Yeah. Well, the thing is, there's a quote, I'll probably misquote it, but the quote is, always have a positive expectation and let failure come as a complete surprise.
yes,
Right?
I love that.
Because
Yeah,
otherwise,
yeah, I
if
love
you're
that.
constantly thinking, oh God, what if this
Yeah,
goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? Then you never have that positive
yeah, I
experience in
love that.
advance. Whereas actually expecting the best from every situation, and then
Yeah,
if it does go off track,
yeah,
deal with it as and when.
yeah.
Don't let yourself get worried and caught up in it in advance, because then you worry about it twice, right? Before it happens and then when it happens.
That's definitely me.
Just let it happen. Just let it happen. Don't worry about it in advance. There's no point. These things take a bit of practice. They take
Yeah, they
some
do.
intention as well. The mental rehearsal stuff
Mm.
it's a really important principle. It's quite difficult to do the first few times you do it, but once you've done it a few times,
Yeah,
it becomes more and more natural, and you find a way to just work through it regularly, and that can be transformational for not only just the way you think and feel, but the results that you experience as a consequence. Yeah, yeah,
totally
very
agree.
good,
Yeah,
very good.
agree.
So if you think about kind of what you've learned then, Paul, throughout your career and working for yourself and social media, if you had to go back and give your younger self some advice, what would you tell young Paul? Perhaps starting out in his career, maybe late teens, early 20s, perhaps. What advice would you give Paul?
So that's a really good question. I would say learn, 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 network,
Yeah.
get to know people, um, and don't worry about what other people think.
Mm.
Um, and do what you love, and whatever you decide to do, give it 100%. Give your all.
Mm.
Don't half-heartedly go into something, because if you do, you'll always think, what if, what if, what if? If you've
Yeah.
given it your all, then if it doesn't succeed, well, hell, I did my best. It's when people
Mm.
don't do what they, give their whole 100%, and I think they'll regret it. So that
Yeah.
would what I would give my young self. And I suppose the other one is, if opportunities come along, grab them with two hands and go for it.
Yeah.
Don't ever think it goes back to what you said earlier, actually, which to do is always think positively. So don't, when you get an opportunity, yes, you've got to weigh it up, but think positively, not negatively.
Yeah.
I
Think
think
about the
that's
best outcome and go for that. Yeah.
100%. That
Yeah.
would be what I'd give. That's a really good question.
Mm.
That's what I'd give my
Mm.
younger self.
Yeah, good advice. Very good advice. And then final thing, practically, if someone's in a sales role now, or they're in a business and they might be doing okay, and then they're thinking, social media is much more of an enabler for sales. It's so much more important to businesses and brands. What advice would you give someone who is perhaps not given social media the time or the focus that it needs? What are the simple things you think people could do to improve their social media, either presence or content?
Yeah, so really good question. So I think it's like we have lots of discussions of an evening as a family unit, I suppose. And I think, social media, whether you love it or you loathe it, it's a fact of life now for the younger generation. Maybe not necessarily our ages, but as in, I'll go through YouTube and that's about it really. LinkedIn, that's about as far as I go.
Yeah.
But I think for the younger generation, it is part of their lives. They don't watch TV. Very few of them do. So, I think if you're not on the social media platforms and you want to elevate yourself, whether it be product or personal profile, it is something that is a must. Unfortunately, I think that it's something that, if you're not grasping it, then you need to. There are some really, really simple ways you can do that, and it's something that I've learned from Harrison is trends. So trends are really big on TikTok specifically and Instagram. So just get on with trends. So if so the first time you've done stuff or you do your first video, do a trend. They're very easy. 9 times out of 10, they're very easy. And that will, depending upon the algorithm and how that goes, then it will depend on whether you're pushed out. But that's what that would be my advice to anybody really. And it is difficult. I mean, don't be wrong. I do look getting in front of a camera. I mean, obviously it's second nature, but when you do it for the first time, it is daunting because you've got this thing pointing at you, and then you're like, well, that's a camera. What's that? You got to look at it. You're like, well, he's not looking back at me. It's not reacting to me. It's just a one-way thing. So, it does take a lot to overcome when you're talking to a camera or doing a camera, so to speak. So, it's just done a little bit. And if you fluff it up, you fluff it up. Just give it a go. Do you think that our videos are done one take? Not a chance. They've done it two. No, they're not. But it takes. We don't get it right first time, so it may take. Sometimes some of the stuff we do can take a couple of hours, even longer, 4 hours. So so it's just sometimes I think we all look for that perfect thing and we do it and we'll go, "That didn't work." Yeah, I know. Do it again. It didn't work. I know. Do it again. So it is, and I do sometimes think that what we've achieved is pretty incredible, but it's been a lot of hard work. It's taken a lot of time, it's taken a lot of effort, it's taken, focus, it's taken training. So, you could say it's luck. Yeah, it is luck, and it is luck, don't get me wrong, but there's been lots of elements to that luck that have got us to where we are. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think it was Jack Nicklaus, the golfer, said the harder I worked, the luckier I got.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
That is the truth. Yeah, it's the truth. You can't.
Yeah.
Yes, luck plays a part, but when luck needs to meet hard work and preparation in order for it to become an opportunity and success, it's really good. Yeah, really.
Absolutely.
Good. So actually get on if you're not on social media, get on there. Make sure that you are following trends. So is that like hashtags and actually or trending
trending sound?
Content?
Yeah, that's it. Trending sounds, trending content.
Yeah, okay. That's so looking for trends and then kind of keep practicing, keep working on it until you get it right and recognize that doesn't happen in one take.
Correct.
And just keep pushing content out there.
Absolutely, 100%. That is the best way. And if anybody wants any support or anything like that, go on to Justin's Inspire Sales Training course. I'd recommend that 100%.
On my course if you need support. Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for coming on the course. We had a great couple of days, and we've got a follow-up session coming up with the group. I saw two of the group at the weekend, actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, at one of the events I was at. So, and they're looking forward to checking back in. They said they're missing all the information about vehicles. They, I feel like I need my fix of bus and transport news from Paul.
Yeah, very, very good. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's a brilliant program, brilliant group. But so Paul, thanks so much for joining me. Anything else that you think is useful? Anything else you wanted to share as part of our conversation today?
No, only thing I'd probably share with anyone listening to this, thank you for listening. And more importantly, whatever you're going through, you're not alone. So if you're feeling a certain way, then I'm sure, we're probably not touching it on this podcast, but I've probably felt it. You've probably felt it. So, it's nothing unusual, so to speak. You just got to keep focused, keep driving through. And then more importantly, tomorrow is a new day. Yeah. Every day resets the clock. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Good advice. Very good advice. And not always easy for us to recognize in the moment if we are going through a difficult period. Yeah. So you're right. Well, I hope that means something to the people out there, certainly people who perhaps need to hear that right now. Yeah. Thanks very much for the conversation, bro. That was brilliant, as I was expecting. Really, really enjoyed it. Thanks for sharing your experience and knowledge so generously with everybody. And if people want to find you, Paul, so they can find the Famileigh on all of the different platforms. So it's the Famileigh, Leigh. Yeah, I think. Yep, that's right. I think and if anybody wants to connect with you, LinkedIn's probably the best place, is it? And it's Paul Leigh, Leigh. Yeah, that's it. Paul Leigh at LinkedIn, and then absolutely. And I'll put in the show notes to this episode. I'll put a link to the Famileigh on the different channels: TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And then I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile as well. So if people want to connect with you and check in, then they can. Thank you very much indeed. I appreciate it. Fantastic talk. Pleasure. Thanks for joining me, Paul. I really appreciate it, and wishing you and the family all the very best for the future. Thank you very much. Cheers, Justin. Right. Pleasure. Cheers, Paul. See you. Bye. Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Inspire Sales podcast. I hope you've got a lot of insights from Paul and my conversation and started to think for yourself and your own business about where social media might work for you, and start to think about your sales role and how perhaps in the future you might be able to explore different opportunities and options for growth for you and for your business. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you would like to have a conversation with me about any of the courses or programs that we run and helping you to elevate your sales performance and effectiveness, do feel free to reach out to me either on LinkedIn or contact me directly through the link in the show notes. Thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Genuine thanks for listening to the Inspire Sales podcast. We hope you enjoy learning some of the most cutting-edge sales techniques and getting close to some of the greatest sales leaders in the world now and in the future. If you'd like to explore further, please feel free to visit our website, focusforgrowth.co.uk. And if you'd like to take our Sales Acceleration Scorecard and discover your sales and influencing score, then check out the show notes for the link in the bio. If you have enjoyed this episode, please hit the subscribe button. If you know people in your sales and leadership network that you think would like to listen to, then please share this episode with them. I'd be very grateful. If you'd like to get in touch with me, please feel free to do so. If you have suggestions for further guests, or if you'd like to appear yourself, please contact me or my team. You can connect with me. I'd love to hear from you. My social profiles are in the show notes, and I look forward to being with you on the next episode. Thanks again for listening. See you soon.